Welcome to the Independent Rep Podcast, the podcast for medical sales reps, distributors, and growth-minded manufacturers who want to succeed in today's changing market. Hosted by John Wilson, former OR rep and now medical device recruiter, this show dives into what's really working out in the field, from deal making to distributor dynamics and everything in between. If you're building your career or your company in medtech, you're in the right place. All right, so I am really excited on this one, Mark. I'm going to just introduce you real quick. You have 27 years in medical device sales, been consulting for a good portion of that. 20 years, did you say?
Well, I've been doing sales for 20 years. I've been consulting for about 8 to 10 years.
Okay,
technically, yeah.
And then and you still work as a rep in your own right, and people will know you.
Still selling, every day. Still selling into ASCs and hospitals every day.
It's amazing. And then people will know you on LinkedIn as the Value Analysis Committee Whisperer.
Yeah. It's, again, you're not allowed to give yourself a nickname because that's lame. But I had a surgeon who wanted a new product approved, and I had gotten pretty good at getting it approved. And he was saying to me, "Hey, do you think we can get that approved?" And I was like most reps. I was like, "Come on, what are you talking to? Come on, right?" And he said, "You know what you're like? You're like that guy that talks to horses, except to the Value Analysis Committee." And I was like, "Is that a compliment? Are you insulting me?" As he was literally backing into the operating room with his hands held up, because he's like, "I'm not sure," and just backed into the room. So it's one of my favorite stories that it kind of stuck. But yeah, so I'm a salesperson, and I just happen to have, I don't know what the heck it is. I've gotten good at getting new products approved, and I've started to teach it over the past 3 or 4 years to people who didn't work for my organization or work with me. And that's how I became really busy as a consultant, but I still sell every day. Because I think that's important. I think it's important to know what's happening in healthcare. And the only way to do it is to be in the buildings.
Yes, you're going into hospitals, selling to doctors, going to the value committee, and doing the whole process that you teach and consult on as well.
Yep.
All right.
That's correct.
And you've been mostly with startups most of your career?
Yeah.
Tell us how you got into the business and how that started.
Yeah. So I was a basketball coach, and then realized I needed to make some money. So I ended up getting hired by Pfizer Pharmaceuticals as they were in the mid to late 90s. Mm-hmm. So I was a pharma rep for 4.5 years, including 2 years. My last 2 years, I've been fortunate enough to be promoted to a hospital rep. And it's germane to the discussion today because we had to get our new drugs onto the formulary at a hospital. It was the hospitals at that point. Their health systems weren't really something that existed in the way we see them now in the late 90s. Mm-hmm. So I had to sell to a committee of people who didn't have me in the room, half of whom had no idea what any of us were talking about because it wasn't in their space.
Right.
And it was a really good training ground. And Pfizer was really good at teaching a lot of this. And then I went to work. I left them because I didn't realize it at the time. I don't like working for big companies. I went to work for a small startup in sleep medicine. Promptly had to do none of that stuff, and did that for 5 years. Cephalon, and they got big. And I wanted to get into med device. So in 2004, I was a startup rep for a small distributor for a small startup spine company, Globus Medical, that is now enormous. It's become the number 2 spine company in the world. I left them 11 years ago. But like in most of these jobs since then, I've been with startups ever since then, I walk into a place and nobody knows me, my product, or my company. And so you become adept at figuring things out.
Yeah.
Because you have no brand name, no name badge. So that's, and I like it. It's fun. So that's what I do.
Yeah. I mean, that's such a different game walking in with something that, you're not wearing, Stryker or Medtronic on your scrubs. So you don't necessarily have that immediate recognition and having to introduce, gain credibility, all of that.
God bless those companies.
Yeah.
God
yeah.
bless them.
Yeah.
I don't want to work for them, and they definitely don't want me working for them. Like it's a really good relationship. Yeah, but they're great companies, and we compete against them, have over the years in certain areas. But yeah.
So two things that I want to touch on here. You've seen you've been doing this a while. You've seen hospitals change from what they were to what they are now. So walk me through, especially for people who are just starting.
Sure. So
the consolidation of hospitals.
Yeah, everybody, if you look around in your neighborhood, your hometown, regardless of where you are, you'll notice that it used to be hospitals, and like they were independent hospitals. And I joke, Our Lady of No Air Conditioning Medical Center, right? Like everybody had. If you live in an area, you got 3 or 4 different hospitals, 5 maybe one's academic that has residents, but others were mostly independent community hospitals. And then as you get into the city, you might have, 8 or 9 or 10 hospitals, but they were all kind of individual hospitals. So as a rep, you could sell to one and then sell to another, and each one had its sort of own, I would actually say, kind of own personality. In the past 15 years, really, as we've seen consolidation, mergers, that Our Lady of No Air Conditioning Medical Center is now part of a larger health system. And so you think about it in your backyard, you probably have the same 3 or 4, maybe 5 hospitals now, but there's probably 2 systems to which they belong, 2 health systems, competing health systems, right? And this is a relatively recent phenomenon that's been accelerated in the past 5 years. So even 10 years ago, most of the health systems in the country were 3 to 4 hospitals, an ASC, an ambulatory surgery center. And the same people that made decisions at one sort of made them at all 3 or 4. And if you knew who they were, you understood how they assessed things and bought.
Mm-hmm.
Now, the standard health system is 8 to 14 hospitals. They do $3 billion a year in annual revenue. They've got a couple of ASCs. And a lot of times the decisions that are made in other cities and in some cases other states.
Yeah.
And when you also look at the acquisition of all these doctors' offices, so something like 3 out of 4 doctors in the country now work for the health system, right? So while there was this consolidation, you would see this sort of lack of independence, or loss of independence, what I should say, have been these 2 sort of things that have made the job different. And anything that's different tends to feel hard or difficult. And I think that's what we've seen a lot of. But it's really, here's the stat I give everybody. From 2020 to 2023, so 4 total calendar years, every month on average, there were 5 to 6 health systems that merged.
Wow.
So you would have 50 to 60 healthcare mergers a year, which comes out to around 200 to 240 over that 4-year stretch. So like this has happened recently, right, John? This is when I say to people, it's sort of a recent phenomenon that everybody looks up and goes, oh yeah, you're right. There's no more mom and pops, right? Sort of like your hardware store. It's very similar. And selling to Home Depot is a lot different than selling to the local hardware store. It's not better or worse. It's just different. So that's what we're seeing in healthcare.
Yeah. So like on the power center of these decisions has also moved as these consolidations have happened in the last, 5 years. That's a pretty dramatic rate. What you just said, that stat, I had not heard that.
Yeah. When you think about it, like the beginning of COVID, right?
Mm-hmm.
February, March 2020, we had a significantly different landscape. And I think a lot of people think that this has changed because COVID has changed everything. And to an extent, there is an aspect of that. But it's really just sort of, it coincided because a lot of health systems were in financial distress over COVID. And that made them acquisition targets. So of those like 50 to 60, I was telling you every year, 1/3 of them have been estimated to have been because one of them was in, or both, were in financial distress, right?
Okay.
So, I mean, like, you can see this, I call it sort of the primordial ooze of value analysis because everybody's still trying to figure it out. But I mean, healthcare is just, everybody's trying to figure it out. It's a different entity than it literally was about 5 years ago. It's hard to believe, right?
Yeah.
So, yeah.
And so
Does that make sense?
absolutely. And so as people are, let's go with the startup manufacturers, the medical device companies that are mid-sized that are going through 1099 reps or a W-2 sales force even. These guys are going into these hospitals. They're doing the same process that we've all been doing the last 10 years. How has it changed more recently and more acutely?
Yeah. So when you're a big buying entity, sophisticated buying entity like these health systems are now, and while the doctors that used to be independent and had political clout, they've been sort of minimized, right?
Mm-hmm.
So we see that. Plus, when you get that big, you have to put in the words I can't stand. That's why I'm a small med device company guy. Policies, procedures, and process, right? The 3 Ps that everybody that's an entrepreneur right now just shuddered that's listening to this. But that's what they have to put it in place because you now have, when you own 77% of the doctors still want new technologies, new items, new things. And there's a lot of reason for that, but they need a pathway to handle these and make intelligent clinical and business decisions. And so what's happened is that process has been put in place, whereas I used to know what it was in those independent hospitals or even the 2 or 3. I'm like, well, if I go talk to her, him, and those two,
Right.
I'll know what I'm looking at.
Yeah.
You
Or
don't.
if you win the big
really,
doctor,
you really can't do that now.
Yeah.
And my friends in supply chain, God bless them, they're nice people, and we disagree on this fundamentally. They have taken control of this process. And supply chain, their job is to make sure everybody has what they need at the lowest price possible, right? Again, important, valuable, but it's not the right way to make business decisions or clinical decisions. And they can call me and argue and scream. They can reject me from hospitals, but they're wrong. I'm right. It's not the way it should be. But if I call on Dr. Wilson and Dr. Wilson says, hey, Cope, I like this. 5 of doctors in my practice like this. And I say, cool. Right? And you go, and I say, and so then you say to me, I don't know, so you got to do this value analysis committee. I got to do some Lumiere or green light thing. Like, you know who that goes to? Right to supply chain. And supply chain
it's not somebody that the rep has really even talked to sometimes. Like
right.
It's three
in a
floors
different
away.
state in a cubicle.
Yeah.
Like, yeah. And again, that's not a shot at them. But what I'm saying is, if you think that's the smart way to make decisions, we would disagree. We may part friends, but we disagree. And so it goes to them. And the first thing supply chain says is, are you a contracted vendor? Are you on our GPO? Give me your pricing. And who wants this? And you're like, well, you don't even know what this is. I could be selling a bulldozer for all you know. And they're like, yeah, you're not a contract. We buy plenty of bulldozers. We don't need yours. Beat it. Mm-hmm. Which is in essence what they say.
Absolutely. Well, and I've even gotten that question from, and I'm getting a little sign that says my internet was slow, but okay. I've even gotten that question from the nurse, the nurse coordinator as I walk in, and I talk about something with them and say, hey, is this something that would be of interest? The first question is it on contract?
Right. Mm-hmm. So, and if you're not, what do they say?
In certain, depending on the relationship, they'll be like, well, you can show it to the doctors, or if they want to see it, you can show it to them. Others will be like, sorry, no. Depending on the hospital system.
Right. And there's an inherent flaw in that because they're dismissing something. For all they know, you're selling a time machine.
Mm-hmm.
right? Which they could probably use.
Mm-hmm.
And they're like, yeah, are you on contract? I mean, and I tell them, no, does that keep you from doing business? Does that keep you from buying stuff? And they're like, no, it's just going to be really hard. I'm like, thanks. I can handle difficult, right? But like, I won't, I mean, you can't, if you get into that conversation, it's okay. You have to be honest with them.
Yeah.
But is that really the best thing for patients? No. And nor should anybody accept it. But this is what's happening in healthcare, and especially in certain health systems.
So how
All
do
right.
you teach reps? What's your process of helping reps,
Yeah.
small teams, big teams,
Yeah.
and how do you
Yeah.
do it?
Well, so it takes homework beforehand, but it's not hard homework. Um, Number one, we have to have a clinical case. That's table stakes, right? Like if you are coming in selling me something that, I mean, legitimately is no better, maybe a little different, I can't help you. I mean, we're
Mhm.
not putting lipstick on boring pigs, right? But let's assume you have something that's of clinical value.
Mhm.
MedDevice is really good at creating products that are better, safer, faster, smarter for patients and doctors. They're excellent at it, right? Like as good as anybody and better than most. But nowadays, you have to have both a clinical case, which is table stakes. Like you don't get a ticket to the dance without it, but you got to have a business case. And I'll stop right there and say people think business means it has to be cheaper. Wrong again. It does not, right? Business case means why should we do this for our business? And what I've found is a lot of med device reps and their companies don't understand who the business people in health systems are or in ambulatory surgery centers or hospitals. It's not supply chain. Again, at risk of offending any of my friends, supply chain supplies things.
Mhm.
They may send you a PO. They are not the business owner. So if I'm calling on gastroenterology and I have something that all the GI doctors like, I tell the GI doctors, cool, under no circumstances are you to request this because we're not on contract. And they're just going to say no. We're going to make a business case. And because you guys know why it's better clinically for patients. But here's the business case might be, well, you allow us to keep patients from having to come back for multiple visits, which we don't want. We want to have them treated and streeted, and so that we can get more sick patients into our clinic and treat more patients. We want to be cutting edge. We'd like that if we might cost a little bit more than what you're currently using, but we decrease downstream costs. You need less people to implement it. You need whatever. Like there's a million things that make a business case that you don't just buy the cheapest, you buy what you think brings you the most value. And we have to have those conversations. Now, doctors are like, hey, that's cool because they like hearing it. But what you need to then say is like, okay, who runs this business unit? Who is in charge of the business unit of gastroenterology? And as I tell people, it's usually a director or VP. It's often a nurse, which is great because they have a clinical background. I call them the clin biz people.
Hmm.
Their responsibility is to deliver the absolute best care at the absolute most efficient way at the best possible price. Doesn't mean cheapest, right?
Mhm.
They're the ones who understand this conversation. And that's who I want to talk to after I start with my doctors or nurses in some cases, and they all like it. So I think that's in essence the process. And what I find is those business unit leaders are so smart. I mean, they
Mhm.
are unbelievably smart. They're finishing my sentence and they're saying, hey, this makes sense. Who wants this? And I'm like, well, Wilson does. And, blank, blank, blank do. They all want it. But we know we need a business case too because we're in the business of healthcare. And they oftentimes go, oh, I got it. And hey, this actually helps us strategically attract more doctors or helps us attract more patients. Or there's a whole subset of patients that we cannot treat because we didn't have an option that you, John, were nice enough to fend your way in here and show it to us. We didn't even know this existed,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And now you're going to raise revenue. Now you're going to treat more patients. They're not mutually, a good business case and a good clinical case are not mutually exclusive. And what I have experienced with med devices, they actually go hand in hand. But if we're making the wrong presentation to the wrong audience, this is what happens. It gets stuck. It just
And
gets bound
it's
up,
easy to make that wrong presentation to the wrong audience because you, especially if you're a newer rep or newer to the territory or a newer product, you're so focused on getting access, and then you're so focused on presenting the product in a case. Getting those, you get this myopia on like that one goal, and you
Yeah.
can kind of lose. I'm speaking from experience here. You lose control of the deal because you're so focused on like getting it in a case with the doctor and then having it be a good case that the rest of that stuff that you just said, it's hard to get a handle on that. So how would you?
Well, it's probably what makes you a pretty good rep too, John. Like you're locked in, right? Like you're goal oriented, you're targeted, and it's what makes you good. It's just not rewarded in today's healthcare, right? Like that's the problem, and that's what I'm trying to get everybody to aim that little red dot on a couple of other people and make a conversation. Because at the end of the day, if you do it the right way, you end up getting that product in the hands of that doctor, right, and into that nurse, and that's the ultimate goal in this. But yeah, what you described is commonplace, and I was certainly guilty of it too. I sit here and like, I'm not saying I've done every dumb thing you're doing. I guarantee I did 10 times over.
Yeah.
I'm trying, and I had to learn from them. Yeah.
I mean, yeah. Well, if you've gone into like the wrong part of the hospital and started selling your product to somebody that doesn't even use it, then you haven't beat me yet.
Yeah. And I actually feel like med device is slow to respond to what you actually just described it really well. What people are struggling with, like we were all trained, John, to call on doctors or nurses and know clinical benefits, our product inside and out. Wake up in the middle of the night, can't remember my kids' names, but I can remember the angles of the screws, like all that nonsense. But it worked, right? It doesn't work anymore. And here's the difficult part: is we have to still be able to do that, and now add some business in, right? And that's hard. And the people who are the managers or directors, like what they did in 2015 when they were reps with the laser focus beam, right? Mm-hmm. That actually still worked. And so they sit and say, man, John's a good rep, but like, I don't understand why he must not be doing it the right way. Mm-hmm. And I would say, not a shot at John here, reps that are doing what John was describing are doing the right thing 10 years ago, the wrong thing nowadays. And sometimes their bosses don't even know it because they haven't had to deal with this.
It's still the old way. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, the world has shifted quickly. Go ahead.
I think that goes without saying so often. Like you see the people who are grasping that, they just automatically do it. But no one necessarily stops unless they listen to you or, get you to train them. No one stops and says, hey, here's the extra process. To the other people, it's just some of these guys are just, I'm thinking of one really good rep. He's retiring recently, but he was just so good at pinpointing everybody in the deal process. And that just goes with experience, I suppose, and familiarity with your territory and getting ahead of the ball. But they don't.
That's a gift. That's a skill and a talent. But like everybody can get better at that, right? Like everybody can use that person as sort of a model and say, how do I get my, in hoops, we would call it get your head up and see the floor, right? But how do you get your head up and see everything?
Yeah.
Or try to. And this is a change, right? It's a change in how we have to sell. So I'm not saying it's easy, but it's a change, right? So change is hard. The job, if you do this, like if you can start to make a fundamental business case, just a fundamental one, the hardest thing to do, I'm telling you, because I did it, is to actually go present it to somebody that you don't, it's not a doctor, right? Mm-hmm. It's not, and your immediate response is like, remember the first time you called on a doctor, you're like, oh God, I'm going to say something. Please don't blow me up. You're so afraid because you're learning. It's the same thing. Remember that fear, that discomfort? You're about to feel it again if you do this, but you will be surprised at how open they are to it because reps aren't doing it to them. And they're like, wow, I didn't, nobody showed me this. Now I understand it a little bit more, but you have to get over it, right? Because it's uncomfortable. There's no two ways about it.
Absolutely. So you said, I think at some point, 20% of medical sales still, and then 80% you're starting to do consulting. I can think of a bazillion distributors I know that could use kind of your help with their teams and things like that. How are you, what's your approach of working with, distributors or small manufacturers?
Yeah. Well, let me start with the people on the point, reps, right? Like I try to teach everything I've learned, everything I learn as I continue to sell, I try to put on LinkedIn and try to give away to everybody because I think reps need this more than anybody. And they're the ones on the point of the tip of the spear, if you will. So companies will hire me, and we usually target sort of I ask them, what product do you want that you're either struggling to get approved in places, or that if you got it approved, it would change your financial outlook, right? And they almost always go like, oh, yep, this one. This one's killing us, or if we got this and we start with them, and then I create what I call, like, think about it, I consider myself sort of a tour guide, and I create a passport because you need different things to be able to do this. So I create a passport, has 6 different things in it specific to the product. And so if you have them, they're basically applicable just about everywhere you go because everybody in healthcare has the same problems. And once you learn how to do this, it's really scalable. That's one of the fascinating parts about this is it scales really quickly. Wow. So I create this passport. It's usually a pro forma. So what I mean is if you say, hey, Cope, we're just like the other guy, we just do it 3 hours faster, right? We make a pro forma that says, okay, well, how many do they do? How long does it currently take them? How long would it take with yours? And then we realize, okay, we just saved them 700 hours this year. Well, what's that mean to them? Can we apply a cost to it or something, right?
Yeah.
And then, but we also have to be able to speak to people who aren't doctors, who aren't nurses. So you need a clinical soundbite so you can say to them, hey, look, I'm just like Steve's product or whatever. I don't know who Steve is. But we do it 3 hours faster. And we do it, we're blue, whatever. But like, they're like, oh, okay, I know what you are. They don't need a deep clinical dive, but they're like, okay, well, how many of these do we do? What do they cost? And what is 3 hours even important around here? Right? Like, and these things. So those are the things. So we sort of we build a business case around that product. And then I go, again, then I call it the map. So you're a tour guide. I'm like, okay, now here's the places we're going to go. And you've never been to some of these places. You're good at calling on the doctors. That's cool. Now we have to go talk to the VP of Surgical Services. We got to go talk to the ER director, who's a nurse, not a doctor, right? Or the ICU charge nurse, right? You may know them, but you don't sell to them. So I got to get that laser focused dot you had earlier we were talking about. I need you to aim it on that person now. And I show you who they are. And then I teach people how to use these things to present. And they're simple and they're repeatable and they're effective. And it's not, again, I joke with you, that's not because I'm some sort of wizard. It's because it's exactly what those folks want. We assume they know what they're paying for. Whoever Steve is, they don't even know what they're paying for. It's something like, I don't know what my cable bill is. Right? Like I have no clue. I don't pay any attention to it. So here's my favorite example. We don't know what Geico. It's like 15 minutes will save you 15% of your car insurance. You're like, I don't even know what I pay. I'm sure I pay it. I should look it up. And I don't pull my bill and I don't look it up. And so I never do anything. You got to come to me and say, hey, Cope, I pulled your bills for the last 6 months. I projected that if you switched us, here's what it looks like for the next 12 months. And I'm like, huh. And your insurance is just as good as that guy's? And you're the little gecko, and you're like, yeah. And I'm like,
Mm-hmm.
you just made a business case to me,
Okay.
right? That's what we need to be able to do.
And it's
That's what I teach
repeatable
companies how to
every
do.
time, every product, every sales call. Like
Yeah.
it's basically
Yeah.
that's the process for your
Yeah.
product.
Yeah. And you get your clinicians involved in it. You say, look, I don't want you to request it. I need to make a business case. And they're like, cool. And I'm like, so I need to know how many of these you do a year. Like, is it a safe estimate that it takes you 10 hours with Steve's product? And they're like, yeah, maybe more like 12. You're like, well, I'm going to say 10. And I'm going to say for mine, 9 hours. And you're like, well, I thought you said it was 7. I'm like, I know, but I want to be conservative. I don't want to look like I'm starting to build this business case. And you do 600 of these a year. Well, we just saved you 600 hours. And they're like, wow, I never thought about it that way. And you're like, I know, I get it, but we got to make a business case. This is a business we're in. I look around because I'm like, this is where we're standing. If you do that, your approval rate will jump and the time to approval will shorten considerably. And there's a million other things you can do. I won't bore you with here. But I tell people, think like a doctor and then think like a CEO. They think differently. They value different things. Can you do both? That's what we need to do as salespeople. And that's not easy.
Yeah, that's a big change.
But it's not as hard as it feels, you know?
Okay. Yeah. And so, I mean, I'm just thinking, as you're talking, I'm just thinking of all the ways that this would have come in handy at some point when I was doing sales. So, I mean, budget, like you hit that wall after the next thing after the contract is we're not budgeted, especially for capital equipment.
Yeah. Well, and you know what's funny, which is sort of a capital thing, right? So like you do need to know those things. So that's an additional thing if you have capital associated with it. But it's funny, capital reps tend to understand us a little bit better because they've sort of had to make business cases as part of their job. So if they're not doing this, they're sometimes they're struggling. If they are doing it, it's because they're in capital. But I would say, and now let me defend all my supply chain friends because I ripped them twice, 3 at least. Let me defend them. They will, to a person, tell you, Mark, we don't always buy the cheapest product. We try to buy the best possible product for the price that we can afford, right? We have to be able to help them understand that, yes, ours may be a little bit more expensive. However, here's the things you get with it. And you used to be able to do that pretty easily with supply chain because you were in a little hospital or a little health system. It's much more difficult to do now. So you got to do it to somebody who can make that discussion to them. And that's the Clin Biz people of wherever you are. And there's always at least one. There has to be, because we're in a business. This is the business of healthcare. And that's another part where people just are like, I don't like the sound of that. Well, I don't know what to tell you.
So it's just, the takeaway here is add that person to your sales process on a daily basis. So instead of just focusing on just getting into the OR, you need to start focusing on getting into the C-suite and meeting with those
John,
people.
tell me this. Tell me from your perspective, right? Because you're hearing some of this for the first time. Do you remember when you had a couple of doctors you called on, and one was sort of like somebody you could talk to, and they were like a mentor to you because they didn't just vaporize you if you said something wrong, right? Mm-hmm. Everybody who's done this has had a couple of those people. And I did the same thing. And then I did the same thing with these business leaders. So like I could tell you that Otar Sarashvili, Vicky Troutman, Sue Comp, and I'm probably forget Kathy Martellotti. These were people I walked in and said, hey, can I bounce this off of you? And I know you're going to tell me if I'm a moron, because they were always comfortable telling me if they didn't like what I was saying. They had no problems doing that. And they would say, yeah, you know what? This matters. This doesn't. You're not thinking about this the right way, Mark, right? And I would tell people, see if you can find a mentor like that. It doesn't even have to be the top person. It could be somebody 1 or 2 pegs up the chain. You will be shocked at what they teach you, just like you were probably shocked at what those mentor physicians taught you. And you're forever beholden to them because they did that for you. So people will do it. And social media makes it way easier to talk to them and learn from them. Mm-hmm. Being able to go virtual You can find them. I would urge people to find a couple of those folks. It'll make you feel more comfortable. It'll make you feel like you're doing things right or doing things in a way that you need to improve.
That's
right?
very good advice.
So
yeah.
does that help? Like, would that have made sense to you if you'd have heard that?
Absolutely. And, I stumbled across those people when I was doing sales in the first few years. And, Dallas Children's, like the woman who actually was doing a lot of purchasing, was very good at walking me through the process.
And you're forever beholden to her, aren't you? Because she was nice enough. And we've lost a smidge of that because of the larger corporatization of these, but those people are still out there and they do want to help because at the end of the day, they do want the best product they can get for patients. And everybody wants to blame and, those guys are just bean counters. That's not accurate. It's not accurate. And if you just think like that, good luck selling. I mean, good luck. You're a joy to be around, right? I urge people to consider doing something like that, because you'll learn. Just like
one of these days, I'm going to have GPOs on here. We'll see. We'll see what we can get out of them.
How much time you got, John? I think let's be politically correct. Let's say there's a place for them. I just haven't figured out what it is.
We're putting this at the end of the interview.
John didn't nod, by the way. He didn't know. That was me saying that. That was not John Wilson.
Not endorsed by John Wilson. No, I mean, they are the gatekeepers in a lot of ways, and sometimes that gate doesn't even have a door. It feels like so.
Yeah,
and that's really why
if you go to that business person, they kick that door in. That's why I think it's so valuable. Do you win every time? No. Do they say, hey man, any chance you're on the GPO or you can get on the GPO? And I'm like, hey, listen, Karen, they don't take our call, by the way, right? But we'll be glad to try. But does that keep you from doing business with us? We just showed we're going to save you $800,000, bring in 200 more patients and clear up your clinic space. And Steve's thing's got a 3% thing that goes back to supply chain. You guys decide what you think is best for the business. Yeah. I know what I think is best, right? Yeah. And you'd be amazed at how it levels the playing field. So
awesome.
How was that? Did I handle that okay? Did I handle that professionally?
Great, Mark. Yeah, as usual. You talked your way out of it, talked your way into it, and then out of it.
Well said.
So all right, in the last minute, what would you tell someone who's just getting into this business, if they're W-2 right now, thinking that they want to go 1099, or if they're just a W-2 or a manager? Give some advice.
Well, number one, have hope. Because the field has changed and it can feel like all they care about is the cheapest or what's on contract, right? It's not the case. It's just the people you've been talking to who make you think that. It's not the case, so have hope. And then I would say find a mentor and go buy them, if you're allowed to. Buy them lunch, buy them coffee and say, I listened to this lunatic on this otherwise good podcast. And he said, I should ask you about the business cases of things. Tell me what you like. Could I make a provisional business case for a product I have, just to understand how you think about this? I think that's necessary. I've urged companies to bring some of these people in as KOLs. Enough with the doctors. Bring some in, but bring these people in. They will help you understand your new customer segment. So, and that's which leads to the sort of the three things I tell everybody is. Treat the ASC or the hospital or the health system like a customer, not a hurdle. If you think of them as a customer, just like you do the doctors, you will be surprised at how much more successful you are.
Yeah.
Number two, you got to think like I said, think like a doctor, think like a CEO. You have to start thinking like that. So does our product help patients? Yes. Does a doctor like it? Yes. Does it help them do more patients? Get more doctors, do more with less staff because they're already understaffed. That's thinking like a business person. And then finally, man, get uncomfortable. You got to get uncomfortable or you're going to struggle because you got to learn some new skills. I try to teach them. I tell people, follow me on LinkedIn. I'll give all of it away for free. Book an appointment. I will talk to reps as much as I can to help them for free. But I want the company should be bringing me in because this is all new terrain and their reps are struggling and they didn't hire bad reps. They're just teaching what they had to do years ago doesn't work today.
Yeah.
And let's coach them up in a different way. And you can do it. I tell everybody, you can do it and I will help. But that's what it is. Think of them like a business. Think of yourself like a business person, like a CEO, and start to get uncomfortable. So hopefully I did that in 70 seconds.
Yeah,
I don't
something
want
like
to
that.
take your thing over. So
Awesome, Mark. Mark Copeland. So the
thanks, buddy.
Value Analysis Committee Whisperer. That's a long name.
The guy that talks to horses, except their VAC committees.
Thank you, Mark.
John, best of luck with your podcast. Thank you so much for even thinking of having me on here.
I'm going to have you
if
back.
I can help, I'm glad to.
All right. Thanks a lot.
Thanks.
Thanks for listening to the Independent Rep Podcast. If you got value from today's episode, please follow, share, and leave a review. To connect with John or learn more about succeeding in medical device sales, visit theindependentrep.com. Until next time, keep grinding, keep learning, and stay independent.